Hello everyone, this is Turin here, and welcome to another entry in our Community Cast series. In this game, we're going to have a showdown between the God of Gobos, who will be playing the Vampire accounts, and he's going to be facing off against the Greenskins, who are going to be piloted by ODM Slayer. So guys, let's go ahead and take a look at the army compositions, the builds, all that kind of good stuff, and we can go from there. Looks like we actually do have a black coach involved, so definitely going to be some good times. Something out about the black coach, as much as it's become like a Total War Warhammer meme, it's actually pretty good against the Greenskins, because again, it's mobile. Well, I guess mobility isn't super pertinent against the Greenskins, but the fact that it causes fear and terror and has armor piercing makes it a pretty good choice against black orcs. But aside from that, let's go ahead and take a look at the Vampire Counts army. So for their leadership, they do have Manfred von Karstein up in the air, and let's see what items they have. So it looks like he does have the Sword of Unholy Power, which is actually a pretty good item. So if you guys look right here, let's find it, the Sword of Unholy Power. Yes, so when he's engaged in melee, his power recharge rates are absolutely insane. So Manfred is one of those lords that you can actually bring like 3 or 4, heavy duty casting, casting cost abilities and actually get away with it. So he has the Spirit Leech, Invocation of Nehek, as well as Raise Dead. So on the flanks of his army, he does have some Blood Knights, which are a pretty good choice against Greenskins. A lot of people like to bring Giants against Vampire Counts because they don't have, the range that other factions have. So Giants can kind of get in there and, do as they please. But Blood Knights are a decent answer if you can draw the Giants away from like the main core of the army. So they do have an anti-large. They can also outclass Orc Boars, but a fault that Blood Knights have against the Greenskins is a lot of times they'll get a little bit overzealous. They'll charge in against some like Wolf Riders and they'll get a foot of Gorked. So that's something you really need to watch out with these guys. But aside from that, very good pick in this matchup. The God of Gobos also does have some Karen Knights here on the far side, and these guys are a very, very good choice against Black Orcs. Again, they have that ethereal unit status. Granted, their HP is very low. If you look, let's see if we can find some other units. So Skeleton Warriors have 6,240 compared to 224, so 2,430 on these guys. But they do have ethereal, so pretty much their physical resist is 80%, which is quite massive. And they have good armor-piercing damage, so against Black Orcs, they'll trade pretty efficiently, I would say. Aside from that, he has Skeleton Spears and Warriors in the whole front line, who are going to be backed up by Cryptors. So these guys, obviously just a fodder unit. They'll be pretty good at like taking the brunt of Savage Orcs or Black Orcs or anything like that. Black Orcs will take a while to get through these guys. Those Savage Orcs will cut them down pretty quick. He does have Cryptors in the back, obviously to deal with the Black Orcs that are probably going to be here, as Black Orcs are pretty good like core line against the Vampire Counts because they are immune to psychology. He does have 2 Banshees, so really taking advantage of the fact that the Greenskins don't really have many great answers against ethereal units. More Cryptors over here, and on the far side he does have more Carnates, and then of course the Great Black Coach. For his Air Force, he does have the Fellbats, as well as Manfred von Karstein. So Fellbats are a nice little utility unit. If you have like, 400 or 500 resources left, you just want to have something to kind of help Manfred out in the sky. Not a bad choice. And I also like to use Fellbats for scouting. Like, you could run Manfred to one side and the Fellbats over to the forest and see if they had any kind of a Vanguard funny business going on. So for the Orcs over here, for ODM Slayer, he does have Azag the Slaughterer. So Azag is definitely a really good pick against Vampire Counts. You just need to be aware that he is a flying unit, and the Vampire Counts do have faster aerial units. So Manfred von Karstein has 105 speed, and a lot of the other Vampire, I think if you just standard Vampires and the Hellseeds are all at 105, if I'm not mistaken, but they can catch him. So Azag does have the Spirit Leech and Fade Abuna, both of which are really good. So Spirit Leech is going to be a nice tool against Manfred, and if he gets like a nice Fade Abuna on those Blood Knights, he'll just get some massive value out of that. But more importantly, he's really going to need to use the Spirit Leech on the Banshees, because Banshees are so hard to kill for the Greenskins. For the rest of his army, he has a combination of Black Orcs in the front line who are mixed in with Savage Orc Biggins, so I like this. He's got the armor piercing, in case his opponent bought Graveguard, and they're also immune to psychology, so they won't collapse very easily. And then he does have the Savage Orc Biggins, who do have that anti-large, so they'll do well against fodder units and against Cryptors. So it's a nice little collaborative front line here. So let's see here. Yeah, Savage Orcs over here on the far side, and just, it's pretty much that same composition across the whole front. Though he does have the Unbreakable Goblins right here, which aren't a bad choice. They'll, again, like I was saying before, hold that front line to the bitter end. In the back, he does have Savage Orc Boys, and these guys really became a meta pick against Vampire Counts because they're absolute monsters in melee, and they do have Frenzy, so they're not going to like rout, I guess, that easily. Granted, the leadership is pretty low, but what triggers the Frenzy? So when it's lower than 50%, so I suppose when it's down in like, the 20s or something. But these guys beat the hell out of zombies, and that was one of the biggest issues with bringing like the Rusty Arrows and Goblin Firing Lines, is that they just get destroyed by zombie summons. So Manfred could just fly over, summon a single group of zombies on Goblins, and the Goblins will basically just get routed. But these guys have 38 weapon strength in melee, which means they'll just beat the hell out of the zombies and definitely clear things up and allow them to start firing again. Aside from that, on the far side, he does have 2 Orc Boars, and he does have the Morgoth's Mangy Marauders. So my apologies for the long-winded introduction, but without further ado, let's get rolling. So it looks like Azog is flying over here on the far side. I think he did see the Blood Knights, and he's probably going to want to use that Fate Abuna. Although it looks like the Blood Knights are actually hidden right now, but he should see him in just a moment here. The Vampire Count's forces, Manfred and his Fellbats, are kind of perusing over here. And something that's nice about this little synergy with the Fellbats as well as Manfred is you can dive the Fellbats on top of some, Orc Boars or, some of these ranged units that are a little bit hard to catch. And then you summon zombies because the Fellbats will like temporarily trap like Orc Boar Boy Biggins and all that kind of stuff. And then the zombies can really tarp at them and actually get quite a few kills because Orc Boars have really bad defensive stats. They only have 18 melee defense, which is quite low. So you can see the Vampire Count's forces are kind of just lining up here against the Orcs. It looks like the mighty Black Coach has begun the battle. I actually didn't see that thing just going full-on Mission Impossible in the back, and it does pretty well, like I mentioned before, against Black Orcs with its armor piercing, its mobility. One thing that really ties up the Black Coach is look at all those goblins flying. And I don't know, did I turn off my blood pack? Because none of those guys were bleeding. I guess I didn't get any kills, but the Black Coach, yeah, got 4 kills in there in that little run. And again, the Black Coach, the way it works, guys, is the longer it's in combat, the more damage, or not damage, but the more utility it gets. So in the forest, you can see the Blood Knights have engaged, and he used those Fellbats really effectively to like tie those guys down and mitigate their movement. And then he also summoned zombies on top of them. So you can see these Orc Boars here just getting massacred. And it looks like there's also an invocation of Nehek going down, so it's looking very, very bad for the Greenskins in the forest. So although the Morgulf's Mage Marauders have a decent little firing line, but you can see even with the stand your ground, they're actually shaken. So Azog does come in here and he pops a Fate Abuna on these guys, which is going to do some massive damage and definitely counteract the invocation from Nehek a little bit. You can see they're actually almost destroyed. So that Fate Abuna is so good against units like that. But regardless, the forest battle is indeed underway. So the main line has engaged. You can see, unfortunately, these Cairn Wraiths, a little bit of a mistake by the Vampire Counts. You definitely want the Cairn Wraiths on top of the Black Orcs, in my opinion, or at least get some of these what's it called, the Cryptors. Oh, is he actually gonna like pick up and bite that goblin's head off? I don't know if I've seen that in a while. Definitely a very grim fate for that guy, but he's looking him in the eyes passionately before he eats him, at least. So that's kind of nice. But look at this guy, the poor little guy's clawing. But definitely a good time for the gobbo there. But I would really like to see these Cryptors like jump over and get onto some of the Black Orcs, because you don't want Cryptors fighting goblins. They're meant for like big, heavy, armor-piercing attacks against like low-density units like Black Orcs. So over here, the Black Orcs are fighting skeletons, which is a good matchup as well, because great weapons are very slow to like cut through these type of units. But still, it would have been nice to get some of the Cryptors over here on these guys. But all right, let's get back to the regular speed here. So you can see the Banshees are kind of supplementing the front line, not racking up a ton of kills, but they do have armor piercing, if I'm not mistaken. They actually have 280 weapon strength, with 190 of that being armor piercing. So that's pretty heavy duty. The Orc firing line in the back is pretty much healthy and unimpeded, and just firing into these Cryptors. So you can see these Cryptors have taken quite a bit of damage. They're down to 9 models, so they haven't lost any models yet, but their leadership is actually reaching 0. So they're taking a ton of damage. And these Goblins, even though it looked bad for them, I mean, they're holding the line and doing really well. And honestly, these Cryptors are probably going to crumble before the Goblins give out. So, I mean, they still have 65 models, and they are unbreakable, so very, very good use of those Gobbos there. But for the most part, ODM Slayer doing a very good job of, keeping his back line safe, and it doesn't look like the Vampire Counts have really penetrated. And I really, again, would have liked to see those Cairn Wraiths get onto those Black Orcs or some, armored targets. So it looks like Azog in the back does jump onto these guys, and he gets a great Fate Abuna on them. He's definitely going to massacre them, though he doesn't do magic damage himself. You think he would. I mean, High King Thorgrim does, and I mean, this guy's definitely a magic user. You'd think he would do some magic damage, but he gets that good Fate Abuna, and the rear attack, obviously one of the best ways for Greenskins to deal with ethereal units is to crumble them by rear charging and all those other type of mechanics. So looks like the Vampire Counts actually, to an extent, did lose that forest engagement. Some Orc Boars do emerge. Manfred's in pretty good shape, and it looks like the God of Gobbos gets a great charge. So he actually uses, I believe, a Spirit Leech, or he was casting one. Let's go ahead and see if he actually got that off. But yes, he does use the Spirit Leech and gets a great rear charge, and Azog is incredibly low. He's at about like 20%, 15%. You can see he's flying around up in the air, and he actually does a little bit of a retaliation charge. So he comes down, Spirit Leech is on his own, and you can see the God of Gobbos is going to be dropping a zombie summon right here. Which is very smart, because had these Savage Orc Biggins been able to get onto Manfred with their anti-large and their extremely high DPS, they might have been able to actually kill him right there, which would have been really, really bad. So in the back, the zombies are kind of tying these guys up, and Manfred is now back up in the air, and you can see he's in hot pursuit of Azog, because if he's able to kill Azog, Orcs have a bit of issues with leadership, so if he's able to actually finish him off, there could be some pretty massive routing. But on the far side, let's go ahead and take an overarching look at things. So the Savage Orc Air Boys in the back are in pretty good shape. Only 2 kills, but still, they're pretty substantial combatants. They could easily push in and, punish those skeleton spears. But the big thing for the Greenskin players is going to be dealing with these freaking Cairn Wraiths. They're so incredibly hard to kill. So they're going to get a rear charge here, and you can see the mighty Black Coach over there is doing some work. And these Savage Orcs are definitely going to, get taken down by these Cairn Wraiths and probably tear out off the battlefield once their frenzy wears off. So The Black Coach gets a little bit overzealous. It actually charges into this this mob here. So let's get some slow motion action of the Black Coach. I'm sure you guys would all appreciate that. But even though like it is in a decent situation right now, it's surrounded by, he probably thought it was just Black Orcs, but there are Savage Orc Biggins in here who do have that anti-large and are really going to do some substantial damage. But the Coach, let's see how many kills it has. It actually has 81 kills. And I'm sure it's done some pretty, good work harassing that back line and terror routing units. So it's definitely paid for itself henceforth. Granted, its leadership is now negative. It's surrounded by these Black Orcs, and it looks like it actually did terror out those Savage Orc Biggins. So definitely some great value from the Black Coach there. On the far side, it looks like Manfred actually did have a bit of a duel with Azag. I always mangle his name, but I think it's Azag, right? But Azag does jump in, and it looks like he gets a nice little charge on that Coach, and he's probably going to be able to finish it off with his heavy weapon strength and pretty good armor piercing damage. So, and Manfred got really low there, so Manfred's almost at his healing cap as well. He does pop the Master of the Black Arts, so hopefully that will help him to kind of get back in the battle a little bit with another Invocation of Heck if he has, enough left. I wish there was some way in replays to really take a look at that and see if how much Winds of Magic, what their recharge rate is. I think that would be really useful for casting purposes. But it looks like Manfred did rout off some of those missile units, but he's still taking quite a bit of work from some of these Savage Orc Arrow Boys over here in the forest. And it looks like there's also a pretty healthy firing squad over here. So he has one group of 48, and he also has the Rusty Arrow. So I don't know if I pointed those guys out earlier, but of course in pretty much any matchup they're a staple. So in the ground, you can see that some of these Karen Wraiths are fighting against some of these Savage Orcs, and the Savage Orcs are going to have a little bit of a hard time getting through, their HP pool with that ethereal status, but still, for the most part, they might be able to. Their leadership is 4, so they don't need to get them much lower to, start crumbling them. So they're at 1 right now, so any sort of rear charge from any other Orc unit would be enough to send those guys crumbling and probably finish them off. So another zombie summon looks to have come down from Manfred von Karstein. And you can see a zombie summon actually comes down right on top of Azag, but it doesn't look like he's going to get impeded by that. He does get up in there, but oh no, you can see that Manfred's coming in hot for that kill. He wants that sweet, sweet Azag, and he's chasing him up in the sky. Let's see if he's going to be able to get him, but Azag is indeed routing. 13 leadership to the 66 of Manfred, but again, they're both within range of 1 or 2 auto attacks. So if the melee defense actually comes through for Azag and he's allowed to get 1 auto attack back on Manfred, he could probably kill him. But it looks like he's just going to chase him off the battlefield. Their speed is close enough that Manfred isn't able to quite catch him. It looks like he did get an attack there and put him down to 73 HP, which is going to be very, very bad. So balance of power is still super even though, because the vampire counts, even though their leadership may be winning over here, the rest of their army is very, very tattered. They have 2 banshees right here. Aside from that, they have some zombies over here who are chasing down some of these Savage Orc Arrow Boys. The Savage Orc Arrow Boys here are actually shaken. They have only 3 leadership, but I mean, if they kept fighting to the bitter end, and assuming they didn't break, they would probably be able to beat these guys because they have 38 weapon strength. So they basically just, I'm not sure how much HP each zombie actually has, but looks like, something else about Savage Orc Arrow Boys to take into account is they only have 8 melee defense, so the zombies can actually make contact with them with their poor melee attack. But you can see Manfred still chasing off Azag in the distance. The Savage Orc Arrow Boys up here on the hill have been kind of jumped by this Banshee here. These are actually the Rusty Arrows, but the Rusty Arrows are probably going to break here. This Banshee does cause fear and terror, and they don't have any mechanics that help them with their psychology. So the Banshee pushes them off, does a pretty good job of doing that, and you can see it's now going to be pushing on over to the Savage Orc Arrow Boys, who will, do some okay damage, because the Banshee at the end of the day, only has 14, maybe 1800 HP, so a single Spirit Leech would have, put these things down, pretty hard, but unfortunately it looked like the Spirit Leech was mostly used on Manfred, which honestly wasn't a bad choice either. I mean, either way could work depending on the circumstances. So the Savage Orcs are going to be fighting that Banshee. Over here we do have a massive surround, and like I mentioned before, this is one of the main ways that Banshees are defeated, is that they're just surrounded and crumbled. The damage coming through on this Banshee isn't that great, but you can see the leadership from being rear charged and army losses and all that kind of stuff. Friends having routed, or not routed, but crumbled, I guess. I wonder if that actually matters to the vampires, but let's see. I can't really check when there's a big blob here, but you can see this Banshee is indeed crumbling. It's down to about 500 HP, so the damage that it's not taking from the melee attacks due to its ethereal status, it's definitely taking from the crumbling. So, but it's still, it's so ethereal terror routing, the Green Knight, all that kind of stuff are so good against the Orcs. This could potentially, if these weren't Black Orcs, if these were other Savage Orcs, this could be a mass rout right now. These guys could just be chain routing, but the Banshee with 300 HP is definitely going to crumble right here. On the far side, well, I wouldn't say far side, but on the other side of the map, we do have this this Banshee who's going to be chasing down these Savage Orc Arrow Boys there. So thankfully, she was able to rout those guys, but their leadership isn't that bad. It's only -9 or 13, so they'll probably come back. And it does look like Azag was driven off the battlefield, and Manfred is coming back, and he is completely at his healing cap. I've only racked up 13 kills, but again, he was doing a lot of Lord dueling and chasing Azag for most of the battle. But he's in decent health, and I mean, his leadership's okay. It's at 48, which at this point in the game is definitely nothing to sneeze at. So, the God of Gabo is definitely making a very good decision here with Manfred not rushing back to that blob. What he probably wants to be doing is finishing off these guys on the periphery, trying to get the Orcs that much closer to army losses. but he definitely does not want to engage this Banshee without Manfred's like support. I don't think. I don't know. It's hard to say. Again, if he has enough Winds of Magic for like for a freaking zombie summon, that would be really, really huge here, and that could definitely help to you know, break these Orc Boar Boy Biggins here. So the Banshee in its final push is going to be charging into these guys in the forest, and you can see the boars and all the other company are going after Manfred over there. Yeah, it looks like they were going after Manfred. We'll go ahead and fast forward a little bit because there's a little bit of a kind of dancing around here. So it looks like the Banshee in here is getting her prison, and she actually does have a prison shank. So she's doing some Matrix moves right there, slitting the throats of some of those black orcs with her pretty good armor piercing damage. And just look at her HP right now, guys. Just take note of this. So these are black orcs. They have 42 weapon strength, give or take. And when they hit her, let's see how much HP they actually get off her. So maybe we just set it back to regular speed. So she's literally taking like negligible damage. She took like 5 damage there. She took 4 there. It's just so little. So it's going to take these guys quite some time. But thankfully, they are immune to psychology. So the only way they're going to be broken is through traditional leadership. And it looks like Manfred does get a great little zombie summon back here on these black orcs. So that rear charge there is definitely going to hurt these guys. But you can see the goblin fanatics who are still there actually throw their activatable ability and do some pretty good splash damage. I mean, those zombies are down to 82 models, and that was a huge HP hit on those guys. So Manfred is up in the air somewhere. Let's go ahead and see if we can find him. I know he's lurking around here somewhere, cackling in the background, but Manfred has jumped the savage orcs in the back, and it looks like the Orc Boar Boy Biggins are kind of waiting, trying to pick him off. And if they're able to get a charge on him, they will definitely, you know, with that charge bonus activated at 46, they might be able to just kill him and burst him down, or at least lead him to crumbling. But as you guys can see, the balance of power is still dead even. The vampire counts only have 12 troops, obviously zombies, Manfred, and the Banshee, and the orcs do have 190 troops, mostly, most of which are black orcs, but the orcs themselves don't have any leadership left. But still, if they can kill everything on the ground and kill this Banshee, then Manfred's going to be forced into a very, very tough fight with some black orcs here. But the Banshee's still completely surrounded, but it's in a pretty good shape. You know, last I checked, it was at like 1700 HP, and right now it's at like 1400, so I mean, Azag is definitely the best choice against these type of units, and I think he was one of the main reasons. If it was like a traditional Orc Lord, like an Orc War Boss, or you know, Grimgor or someone like that, or Warzog, this would have been a much tougher battle, but I think Azag was very helpful. You guys saw he was getting those really good like Fade of units and all those other abilities on those Cairn Wraiths there. So they're getting a bit of us around here on the Banshee, and its leadership is starting to get a little bit low. It's down to 18, so just to spare you guys the monotony of it all, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward. You can see some zombies are pacing from the back here, but just such an incredibly close battle. The Banshee's leadership is still at 18. It's sitting pretty comfortably, but the Black Orcs are still steady, and it doesn't look like they're crumbling anytime soon. The 99 zombies coming in here will definitely be helpful, but you can see as soon as Manfred lands, and he pops his Master of the Black Arts, and he does have his sword as well, so he might be able to get a little bit more juice, but he is taking a beat down, so he definitely probably wants to stay up in the air, because if he starts to tank, it's going to hurt the Banshee's leadership as well. So Manfred does run. You can see the Fanatics throw another set of bombs on these guys, doing a pretty good job of just keeping those numbers down. But that Banshee, unfortunately, is still rocking 800 HP and 24 leadership, guys. So we'll go ahead and keep fast forwarding here just to spare you guys. But you can see the orcs continuing to just beat on this thing like a drum. It's down to about 600 HP, and yeah, that charge there did pretty well kind of tanking its leadership. But Manfred does come in as well with a little bit of rear charge action. And let's see what it's at right now. So yeah, 348. And man, guys, it's such a rough thing for the vampire, or not for the Greenskins, just to have to deal with that like ethereal like issue. Like, it's so annoying playing against the Green Knight. But regardless, the vampire counts actually do lose. So the Green Knights and the Black, not the Green Knights, well, the Green Boys, the Greens, whatever you guys want to call them, they did a great job. They actually were able to win against the Banshee, and Manfred was too low to do anything, and he actually just crumbled up on this guy. So very well played to both players. I really like the army composition from God of Gabos, who's going by insert Smurf name, and ODM's composition was great as well. The Savage Orcs did really good. Obviously performed pretty well, dealt with the fodder units. The Savage Orc Air Boys were able to just annihilate those Crypt Horrors. I think there was a few tweaks in the beginning with the Cairn Wraiths and the Crypt Horrors. They were a little bit inefficient. They were fighting goblins, and then they were also fighting Savage Orc Biggins. They should have been on the Black Orcs just hard. If he had been able to nuke those Black Orcs in the beginning with those Crypt Horrors and the Cairn Wraiths, that would have been, you know, I think a much more smooth, you know, outcome for him. But regardless, very well played to both the God of Gabos as well as ODM Slayer. Look forward to seeing you guys again on ladder. Well, not again, but someday on ladder. And thanks again for watching, guys. Have an excellent night, and take care.